Christmas is approaching quickly, and by now all of Scotland is lit up by Christmas trees and bay windows. And I feel like it's my favourite part of the day nowadays, to go out at night with Archie and Jack and to take a look at people's Christmas trees and to decide which ones are our favourites. It just feels like people are inviting you to their home by leaving open their curtains and by letting you look at their Christmas trees. And it just feels so intimate, as if we get to be part of their celebration. And to build up to Christmas, I've started rewatching the 2017 version of Little Women, and there's just something so magical about how Christmas is portrayed in the movie. So I've decided that I'm going to make a Little Women-inspired Christmas dress for this year's Christmas celebration. But obviously I'm not thinking historically accurate, so even though this movie is set in the 1860s and the silhouette is absolutely beautiful, I do not have the undergarments to make the silhouette properly work. So I'm just going to take inspiration from the dresses of the era and from the costumes worn in the movie and make my own dress. And for that, I came across a fabric that I am in love with. Let me show you. Look at this fabric. It is absolutely stunning. It's the perfect Christmassy red, and it's got these little checks and blue and beige dots in it, and it's just so pretty. And I feel like I often gravitate to using bed sheets because it's actually really hard to find fabric that is interesting and patterned, because often you can find gingham and you can find stripes, but to find something that is a little bit more unique is really hard. So I was over the top when I found this fabric online, and I immediately thought, I need to make a Christmas dress from this. And I have to thank all of you for this, because in the last video I was talking about how moving and everything was quite expensive, so I used very cheap fabric for my last project. But because you guys have been watching my videos so much lately, I can afford nicer fabric again, so I really have to thank you guys for this. I mean, not that I'm making tons of money off YouTube, but at least I make the money that I can then use for fabric and then make new videos. It gives me the opportunity to do my hobbies and share them with you, which is really nice, and I appreciate it. So thank you everyone for all the people that have joined this year and made this account bigger and give me the chance to do the things I love and share it with you guys. The pattern I have in mind is the Snapdragon blouse by Stitch Maiden, which came out a little while ago. The first time I saw it, I was immediately thinking this looks very Little Women inspired. So I'm excited to get a chance to finally use it. My plan for this dress is that I would love to use the Snapdragon blouse, which has a little Peter Pan collar and these really voluminous sleeves, but then they don't have too much gathering up here. So usually, you know how I like my little 1940s shoulder. I'm not going to do this, and I hope that I won't regret it, but that's what we're making the mock-up for, right? As for the skirt, I have been thinking forth and back about this, but I think I'm going to use my A-line skirt that I use for many of my Letty dresses, because I want it to be gathered around the waist. So if I used my circle skirt, which uses so much fabric and I don't have that much, or my Edwardian skirt, they're mainly kind of like flat around the waist, but I would want it to be gathered to have this more 1860s looking silhouette. But I also really want to have a ruffle at the bottom, because I think that would look so cute. But again, we'll have to see how much fabric is there. And because that wasn't enough, I also bought lots of other things that go perfectly with the color. Look at this absolutely stunning little, what do you even call that? Wool? It's not wool, it's cotton wool. Thread? Yarn. Yarn? No. See, I am really not a knitter, so I'm currently thinking, what do I call this? I need to show you how perfect the color matches. Look at this. And like I said, I'm not very good at knitting, but I was thinking maybe I could make a little scarf or something to go with it, because I just love this color so much, and I like the idea of sitting by the Christmas tree at night and just knitting something, because I've been wanting to knit for so long, but I just don't have the patience for it. So this will be a very small little project and just straightforward, just to give me the opportunity to do a little bit more Christmas crafting. And then I also got myself 2 ribbons, which are also such nice color matches to this, and they're actually for Christmas wraps. So they are polyester, but I just felt like these colors were too perfect to not take them. So I'm thinking of maybe using them maybe around the sleeves for the cuffs, or maybe even around the hem, because these are 10 meters long. So that should be enough to do the hem. But we've got a lot of things to work with. Now we just have to make the mock-up first. And here's our mock-up. So I already had to change a few things on this just to make sure it fits me quite well. And I'll tell you what I've changed from the original pattern. So this is what the front looks like. And this is the amount I've taken out of the side seam right here. So the side seam used to be just perfectly straight, but I felt like when tucked into a skirt, it just felt a little bit bulgy. So I've taken in the side seam just to make it fit a little bit better. So for the back, we've got the little yoke up here, and then there's a big piece here that was meant to be put on the fold. So I've realized that I had to put in a back seam just to not make it completely bulge out of my skirt. So this is what the pattern looks like currently, and I have taken this much out. So this is where it said to put on the fold, and I've just taken that out to make it fit better. So this is what the blouse looks like, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. I think it's really cute, and I've been wanting to make a new blouse for ages, but I've always kind of felt like I didn't want to make a video about it because it seems like not that exciting to just make a little blouse. So as I said, I have already fitted it a little bit at the front and then here at the back seam. And in retrospect, I think I'm gonna do the pleating a little bit different because the pleating was made for it to be quite big at the back, but now that I've taken in the back seam, it looks a little bit silly, so I think I'll just gather the back in. And a few other things I'm gonna change to the final version is I'm going to put all of these buttons a little bit closer together because I feel like there is a little bit of gaping here, which is fine. But now that I know about it, I'm gonna put the buttons a little bit tighter together. And then I love the sleeves, but I feel like they are a little bit too big for me. And I know you're going to be like, no, big sleeves are amazing, but I feel like they could be just a little bit smaller. So I'm not going to go for a completely different sleeve. What I'm going to do is basically, this is what the pattern used to look like. So they were on both sides. It was half a circle for the sleeve, which made these really big and nice sleeves, but I just feel like it could be a little bit smaller just to have a little bit less volume. It's still gonna be a really big sleeve, it's just gonna be slightly less big. So I'm just gonna cut that out a little bit smaller. And now there's a cat who wants to be in the video. So I'm very excited that I have a new blouse and that I am happy with how it turned out, so we can go ahead and continue working on the actual dress. So let's do some cutting out. So everything's cut out, and I thought I'd tell you about what kind of pattern pieces I have here. I've got my two cuffs, which have been put on interfacing. Then I've got the amended sleeve, which is going to be a little bit less voluminous. I've got my top collar and my bottom collar. The top one is on interfacing. And I've got the two collar stands, which are both on interfacing. The amended back piece, which is also shorter because we're not going to have a blouse, it's going to be a dress, so I could just like cut it off at the waist. Then the yoke for the back, which is like where the back piece is going in. I've got my two fronts, which I've put a little bit of interfacing just at the button front to give it a little bit more stability. Very important, I've got two pairs of pocket pieces, and then I've got the actual skirt. So now I know in the introduction I said I would make it an A-line skirt, but I realized my A-line pattern was actually more voluminous towards the bottom and it didn't fit onto the fabric because it's quite narrow. And then I've decided, because I really want to have a lot of gathering at the waist to make it kind of look very 1860s, just use a rectangle piece. So now I don't normally like rectangle skirts, but I'm hoping, because it's going to have the ruffle, that it still doesn't kind of just go pff, but rather pff, and then if that makes sense. I just felt like the fabric wasn't wide enough to allow me to do a really nice silhouette. So really, if I had cut it as an A-line, I would have just given up gathers at the waist. So I'm hoping this will work out fine. But like I said, I haven't actually ever made a rectangle skirt, so we'll see how it goes. So I've just used one width of fabric for the front, and then another width of fabric for the back. And then I've got 4 pieces for the gathers. 2 of these are going to be gathered into one length so that it's at least a little bit gathered. And then I've got 2 pieces for the waistband. So now ideally I would have done a little waistband and then another detachable waistband which I can tie around. But there wasn't enough fabric. I will decide eventually what I'm gonna do. And all of this is gonna be relatively tight. So now recently I got a question about how I usually make the closures on my dresses, because I don't really talk about it. But that is mainly because I make most of my dresses to go over my shoulders. So most of my dresses don't actually have any closures, just these detachable waistbands that are then used to cinch in my waist. But this one is gonna be a little bit more fitted, so I will have to put in a side zipper, which I am not good at. So you see how this isn't like overly fitted. I've just removed a little bit of the bulk, but I wouldn't be able to get this over my shoulders anymore. So I'll, need to put in the side zipper, which I didn't order. So I'll just use one of the ones I have, and I do have one in beige. And if I was to sew it in really well, the beige matches the stripes quite well, so it shouldn't be overly visible. But I happen to not be known for sewing in side zippers well, so yeah, so we'll see how that goes. That is where we're at. So I'm just going to start sewing. Probably start with the skirt. I have to make sure I leave the side seam open. And I'm not going to forget about that, am I? Let's do some sewing. Okay, I feel and look a little bit windswept because Archie and I just went for the longest walkie along the waterfront. Because for a change, it's actually sunny today. It's just been raining in Inverclyde for like weeks and weeks and weeks. And Archie really doesn't like rain. So since it was sunny today, he got really excited and then we walked for like ages. And I am very exhausted, but we still have to continue with the sewing. The skirt is finished other than for the side seam and the hem, and now we're going to start making the bodice. Also with the side seam open, and then eventually I can put the side zipper in. So for now, I'm just going to make the bodice the same way I made the mock-up blouse, which wasn't overly difficult, so I don't see any issues coming up with it. And then we can see how everything looks together, and I can try to put in the zipper, or maybe I'll not do that today and try that tomorrow when I'm a little bit more refreshed. We'll just make the bodice for now and then we'll see how far we get today. And I have forgotten to leave open the side seam. It's almost like a foreshadowed that. But other than that, fits well. Quite happy with what it looks like, other than me being stupid again. It is getting pretty dark, but I am in absolute love with how this looks like. So it is a little bit too long, so I'll have to cut a little bit off before fusing this together. But I'm honestly so happy with how this is turning out. I'm already loving it so very much. But I don't think I can finish it today just based on how late it is already. So I will futz around a little bit more with the bodice, maybe add the buttons and cut the bottom off where there's the excess fabric. But then tomorrow I will try to focus on making everything become one dress. Because like I said, I'm not very confident in adding invisible zippers, and they're never actually invisible. And let me show you the one that I have. So this is the color I have, and it does kind of work quite well with all of the beige tones in here, but that only works if it is almost invisible. If it is very visible, it will just look silly. So let's hope for the best. And then I still have to do some hemming tomorrow, and I'm gonna start looking into where to put the trim. Because the smaller one I have is a better match to the color, but the bigger one I have would also be interesting because it's slightly more red than the dress. So I haven't really decided where I will place what yet, but all of that will happen tomorrow on a fresh new day with a little bit more daylight. And I've also finished watching the 2019 version of Little Women earlier, because I thought I should watch the 2017 and the 2019 ones side by side, just so I can finally make up my mind which one I like better. But in order to tell you, I will get a little bit more comfy. So let's talk about the 2017 show versus the 2019 movie. I actually was exposed to Little Women very late, so I've never read the book before I watched the show, which came out in 2017. So I watched it around about that time, and I loved the TV show. I immediately told my mom to watch it as well. I think it was just so perfect. It's just so cozy and whimsical, and it really just like catches this feeling of like having a loving home and coming home for Christmas. Whereas the movie I then watched later after I already knew the stories, so I feel like this whole jumping forth and back wasn't as confusing because I already knew the storyline. I just felt like with the movie, they weren't quite as focused on telling the story rather than bringing across a message, which I guess has its place and time as well. But it just often felt like there were so many monologues of women talking about how hard it is to be a woman, and very much from that point of view, and not quite as cozy and whimsical. So I did appreciate the show more for that. Whereas I have to admit, I love Timothée Chalamet, my absolute guilty pleasure. I love this man so much, so I was like really excited to see him as Laurie. So my verdict is I think I prefer the 2017 version, and I would love to hear which one you like the best. So I think I do remember there was this whole kind of like discussion about Emma Watson taking the role of Meg, because Meg is obviously not a feminist role, because poor girl gets married and never has a chance to have a career. And I always like could not understand why that is a problem. I feel like Meg is one of the characters I can relate to the most. Probably her and Amy are kind of like the ones I see myself in most. I don't really understand what the problem is, because like in the movie, even Meg says to Joe, when Joe's just like, oh, you shouldn't marry, you should be an actress, I'll take you away and you don't have to marry. And then Meg says, just because your dreams are different from mine doesn't make mine less important. And I think that is a really nice quote, something that I like to think about as well, because obviously my life choices aren't all that career driven either. And a lot of people, especially from Germany, who then often tell me what I do is wrong and like my dreams aren't. So I don't know how to say this. Growing up, I've always dreamt of being a housewife. It's always been my dream. I've been in high school, and even then I said like my dream job is being a housewife. And one of my friends, bless you if you watch this, I still love you, but she said to me, women haven't burned their bras just so you can be a housewife now. I just always felt like my dream of having this domestic, peaceful life was something to be ashamed of. And I'm here today to tell you all it's really not. If being a housewife is our dream, then we should be allowed to dream of being a housewife. Anyways, that's my TED Talk. I feel like I have a lot of thoughts around this just because I've been exposed to kind of like this discussion for a long time. And obviously, I'm not a housewife. I am a scientist now, so things didn't really go as planned for me. But one can dream. With that, I will call it a day, and I will meet you all again back here to finish the dress tomorrow morning. Good morning! It is the third day of working on the Little Women inspired Christmas dress, and things are coming together really nicely. I'm honestly so in love with what it looks like. I already showed my family yesterday, made a little video, and I was just like, this is honestly one of the best things I've ever made, which I tend to say with almost everything I make. So I guess it's a sign that I'm progressing. I'm very happy with what it's looking like. We just have to attach the bodice to the skirt now, do the little side zipper that could still ruin the entire project, and then add some trim to give it a little bit more of like a shiny detail. That's the word I was looking for. So hopefully not a full day of sewing. With that, we're just gonna start doing some sewing and then see how things are going. So let's go. The dress is finished and I'm honestly so happy with how it turned out. I can't wait to show you guys and to wear it for Christmas. So I added some more ribbons at the bottom because they're slightly shiny and I feel like it adds kind of like an interesting detail to the bottom. Makes it feel a little bit more fancy because obviously it's like cotton, so it's not very shiny, but it's more natural. But then with the ribbon, it kind of adds everything together and makes it even more Christmassy. I even had a little bit of fabric left to make a bow tie thingy for my hair. And then I am still working on my knitting. So originally I was thinking I wanted to make a little bow tie like thingy, so like a tiny little scarf that I can just tie around the neck to kind of like be underneath the collar and just peek out, and I thought it would look cute. But as I said, I am not a big knitter, so the progress is really slow and the quality is not very good. So I feel like at this point I'm just continuing with my knitting at night just because I keep complaining to Jack and I say I wish I could knit, but I'm just not good at it and it just doesn't make sense to me. And he says, you know, you've never properly knit anything, so you have to do it for a while in order for it to become logical. And I just feel like I'm not even at the stage where I can work with a pattern, because even patterns just don't make sense to me. I think I was like prior to that, just kind of like when I first started sewing and I read a sewing pattern and it was just kind of like base things together and top stitch it. And I'm like, neither of these words mean anything to me. I'm just in this prior stage where I'm just kind of like really struggling to get the movements even right. But I keep seeing people knit jumpers and cardigans, and it's like the one thing I just cannot do myself. So I'm always relying on buying things, and then I feel like with knit stuff, they're just always too big, and I would just like to make some cute things in my own size. But I'm not sure I will ever be able to knit properly. I talked to my mum about it when she was over, and my mum was just like, you just don't have the patience for this. And I'm like, I know. Because with sewing, like even this dress took me 3 days to make, with one day being the mock-up, and then yesterday working on mainly the body and everything of it, and today the finishing touches. So this was already a long project for me. So I don't think I can spend 50 hours on making a jumper or however long it takes, but I wish I could. So I think I'm just gonna continue knitting the scarf, even if I cannot include it in the reveal, which I want to shoot tomorrow. So I'll show you either way, whether it's in the reveal or not, how my knitting progress has gone. Just to touch grass a little bit and show you my humble proceedings. Other than that, I'm really happy and I'm super excited, and I'm looking forward to my Christmas celebration. My mum was over earlier this month, which I mentioned in my previous video, for St. Nicholas Day, because as I said, I'm German, so I celebrate Christmas a little bit differently, with St. Nicholas Day being the first day that we celebrate, which is the 6th of December. So we put our boots in front of the door on the outside, and then we wake up in the morning, and if we've been good over the year, St. Nicholas brings us presents and fills our boots with presents. So my mum obviously would have done that for me when I was a child. And over the past years, I tried to encourage Jack to take part in the tradition. For the first years, he kept forgetting it because it's just not part of British culture. But over the past years, he has been getting me St. Nicholas presents. So it's not something massive. It's just like a chocolate Santa, or this year he got me kind of like a book about the history of the town we moved to. So just like small things, but I just love the gesture. It's just like the start of Christmas season for me. And since my mum was here for it, I felt like I took over the role of the mum this year, and I got everyone St. Nicholas presents, and I made sure all the boots were in front of the door, and then Tilly and Archie got stuff as well, and Jack and my mum. And I got my mum matching Christmas pajamas to mine, so we were just wearing our Christmas pajama the entire time she was over. When I told Jack about it, I was like, I got us matching Christmas pajamas, and Jack was like, us? Me and my mum, and he's like, oh, good. So then we spent the rest of St. Nicholas Day making Christmas decorations for the tree, because we've got a really nice real tree this year, which is much bigger than a tree we could have fitted in our old flat. So just didn't have enough Christmas ornaments to fill the tree, so my mum and I were making little paper stars out of old books and these little garlands that have like the rings attached into each other. So we just spent all day of St. Nicholas Day crafting, which was honestly so nice and whimsical. So now what's left is Christmas Eve, which we'll be celebrating here with Jack and the pets, and then Christmas Day, which we'll be celebrating with Jack's family over in Dundee where they live. So I'm very excited to be wearing my Christmas dress for it, and to feel very festive this year, and to have our very first Christmas in the new flat. So to share the Christmas spirit with you guys, how about we just jump straight over to the reveal and I show you what my Christmas dress looks like on me. It's finished! I am honestly so in love with how this turned out. I feel like it's the perfect dress for Christmas, and I'm very excited to wear it. And I think everything went pretty good. I'm even surprised that the zipper on the side is not overly visible. However, there was one thing that didn't work properly with the pattern for me, and that was the back. So I already mentioned that I had to take quite a bit out of the back down here, but there was meant to be a pleat up here going into the yoke, and the yoke was also a little bit too big in the back, and then the entire thing felt very bulgy, so I actually had to go in and put a dart all the way along, almost up to the collar. So I'm not sure if you can see that, but it looks a little bit untidy. So kind of right here. But then also usually I would wear my hair open, so hopefully no one will see. And if someone notices it, it just feels like it shouldn't be too much of a detail. Luckily, the pattern is quite busy and distracts from it, so I don't think it's a big issue. I think this might have happened because at the front I had marked where the center front was meant to be according to the pattern, but I think my bust was maybe a little bit too big for that, so I had to move the center front in a little bit. So there's more fabric here, and then the entire neckline here was bigger than the collar, and then I took it out of the back. So there's also a little bit of wrinkling here, but oh well. And I promised I would show you my knitting, so get ready to be humbled. As you can tell by the fact that I'm not wearing my little scarf, I didn't finish it. This is how far I got. And as I was saying, it's not just that I didn't get far, it's also very poorly done. So you see there are a lot of mistakes and the edges are not very even, and it's just generally not something that would be awarded for winning knitting prizes, let's say that. But I will continue with this, even though I'm not sure this is going to lead to anything, but just maybe I'll finish this and suddenly I will have an epiphany on knitting and I will just wake up one day being able to make jumpers. But with that, we're coming to the end of our video, and it is almost Christmas, so I'm very happy that I managed to get this out to you guys before Christmas is actually happening. And whether you're celebrating or not, I hope you're having a lovely time and you're enjoying getting a little break from work and seeing all the fairy lights, and hopefully I will see you guys back here with the next video, which I am probably going to get to you in the new year. I'm going to do a little bit more renovating again, but I think we all deserve a little break. So I hope you have a lovely Christmas, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye. Oh, and I forgot to say you should like and subscribe, because I meant to say this after every video. Okay, bye bye.